If you are already bullish on Hims, then this is something you need to hear. CEO Andrew Dudum just went deeper than ever into the company's future, talking peptides, the next level of healthcare personalization, and how Hims plans to dominate the next generation of healthcare consumers for decades. This isn't just an update, it's a glimpse at where the company could be headed long term. I break down what he said and what it means to us as investors. Let's get into it. Andrew Dudum recently went on a podcast and he really dug deep into the Hims business, right? So he talked about the peptides future, personalized health, and the long-term goals of Hims and how they're planning to take this next generation, the young generation, and turn them into customers for decades. I also kind of go into how they could kind of be the next Amazon or Netflix of the healthcare industry. So let's first get into the future of peptides. Actually, first, if you can, give me a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. But let's see what he talked about to the future of peptides, because everyone's talking about peptides a little bit right now. So let's kind of see what he had to say about the future of peptides and Hims.
I think that's one of the funny things about our business is we are constantly in the headlines as a single category business. When we first launched, when you and I first met, we were the erectile dysfunction business, right? And it was, front page of the New York Times, and it was fun and silly and provocative, and all we did from everyone's perspective was ED. And then we launched hair, and then all of a sudden it was like, we're a hair loss business. And then we launched the Hers business, and everyone said, oh, Hers is never going to work. You're just an ED and hair loss business. And then eventually we launched GLP-1s, and everyone said, oh, now you're just a weight loss business. And, a year from now, people will say, oh, you're just like a peptides business, probably, if I were to take a guess. When I think of new categories, peptides, for example, right? A lot of conversation about 10, 15 peptides going from class 2, category 2 to category 1 compounding, so that people can actually get access to things like BPC 157, TB 500. This is an incredibly interesting category. You won't see us be first to market in this category. You'll see us, when we launch it, feel extremely confident in the clinical protocols, extremely confident in the guardrails, make sure that the supply chain and the quality is done to a level we are, feel is bulletproof from a pharmaceutical standpoint. So, there's a lot of introspection in my brain around speed and prioritization of which categories to enter. But what I always come back to is not being first, but being best. So that from a brand standpoint, people know Hims and Hers to be high quality and trusted. Like when we actually bring something to market, it's safe, it's done right, and it could be something that's powerful and important for your health.
There's one thing that he said that really caught my attention. He kept talking about how, they're seen as this business. And right now Hims is seen as this weight loss, Ozempic type, right, business, the GLP-1. And then he said, and then in a year from now, you might see us as a peptides business. So he did say they don't want to be the first to come out, right? They want to make sure it's quality and all that. But him putting out a date of 1 year, there's no guarantee. It's a rough, but it's a process, right? A process that they're probably already in. And so I do believe peptides is going to be a big part of their future. And especially if he's saying that they might be seen as a peptide business in a year. So it's going to be very interesting exactly how that works out. So we're going to kind of go over Hims and Hers and the peptide side of business really quick. So Hims and Hers is expanding into personalized peptide therapies. Acquisition and production. So Hims acquired a California-based peptide facility to strengthen its domestic supply chain and ensure high-quality personalized medication access. So they got, a big peptide facility so they can just make it themselves. Target areas: the company is focusing on peptide innovation for metabolic optimization, weight loss, GLP-1, preventive health, recovery science, and cognitive performance. So basically, they want the peptides to do right everywhere, from the weight loss to preventing, certain things of, diseases and stuff like that, illnesses, recovery, like if you hurt yourself or you're just working out, and then cognitive for your mind. So there's all different kinds of peptides that they're looking to get into. Hair and skincare. Hims uses peptides currently in products designed for hair growth. And the future outlook: the company is positioning itself to lead the preventive health and longevity space, anticipating relaxed FDA regulations on compounded injectable peptides. And like you said, they are moving into a category 2 or they're moving into a less strict category. So they will be able to use peptides more. Just a quick history of peptides. Peptides in medicine date back over a century, with the first therapeutic application, insulin, introduced in the 1920s. While therapeutic peptides have been around over 100 years, peptide synthesis and research began in 1901, and their use in skincare surfaced in the 1970s, gaining major traction in the late 2000s. Peptides are not new. It's not a new science. It's not, right? So in 1901, that was when the GLI was first synthesized, right? And now we have all the way to 2010s to present, interest in designer peptides, right, for injury recovery, but these have not been, all of them have not been researched yet, right? But it still says today there are over 60 approved peptide drugs in the US and other major markets with ongoing development for various health conditions. All right, so there's going to be a lot of things that help this in gaining peptides and more of AI, right? They're going to be doing a lot more AI stuff, and that's going to help. The peptide market is currently undergoing a massive gold rush. Over the next 10 years, it is expected to more than double in value, shifting from a market dominated by chronic metabolic treatments to one defined by targeted oncology, neurology, and non-invasive oral delivery. So essentially, over the next 10 years, it's planning to grow really big, right? More than double with all of these things, right? Target oncology, neurology, and non-invasive, which is basically you're taking a pill instead of, shooting it into your skin. The global peptide therapeutics market is currently valued between 80 and 140 billion. It's projected to approximately almost 300 billion by 2033 to 2035. That's a big jump right there, right? So there's going to be a market for it in the future. Key shifts over the next decade. Today, this is what the peptides are dominated by metabolic disorders like diabetes and obesity, which account for over 60% of the market. But in 10 years, while metabolic drugs will remain huge, the fastest growth will shift toward oncology, neurology, and rare diseases, right? So oncology is going to be peptide conjugates and vaccines for cancer. Neurology is going to be like new peptides that can cross the blood-brain barrier to treat Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and rare disease, high specificity. I'm drawing a blank on that one right now. I'm not even going to say it. Peptides for orphan conditions. So like obviously rare diseases. I don't even know why I need to explain that. So the evolution of delivery methods. So right now today, most peptides, around 84%, are administered via injection because they degrade quickly in the stomach. But in 10 years, the oral peptide market is expected to grow at a CAGR of 16%, reaching 36 billion by 2034. And the daily pills will be the standard for many treatments. So that will be interesting, right? AI and manufacturing. So today, the traditional peptide discovery is slow and expensive, often requiring years of screening and thousands of compounds. In 10 years, artificial intelligence will compress discovery timelines from years to months by predicting the stability and receptor binding of millions of peptide sequences before they're even synthesized in a lab. So on top of, this, it's already a science and technology that's been out in terms of peptides and how we use it. AI is going to speed the process on how quickly we can improve the peptide business. So he also talked about the personalized health. If you don't know, they'll send you a blood test and do all this. So they do all these blood analytic tests for you, right? So he talked about that in the future of that. So let's kind of break down exactly what they said or what he said about the personalized health data and how they're going to be using that to their advantage.
Why do you not have HIMSS preventative assessments in every city and say, hey, we'll tell you what's wrong with you, like a Prenovo does or like any of the preventative health, and you can choose to buy with us or not. But by doing that, you're building up the world's largest set of healthcare data for free, and you give it for free, and the treatment's what they pay for.
I think we are very close to that being a reality. My goal, my vision is like very quickly, I want to give that away as a part of the Hims and Hers membership for free. Because if you can get a sense of those metrics, and I'm not talking about just like baseline metrics, like, your cholesterol and things. I'm actually talking about things that are even more sophisticated, like genetic predisposition risks, which, very few people get access to. I think where there's a lot of interesting companies right now is in highly specialized levels of testing for clinical areas that are meaningfully unmet, right? So you look at things like cardiovascular disease, right? Still one of the number one killers. Most dads die of a heart attack. Most people just don't even have access to this stuff. So they don't even know if they're like doing well. I'll give you an example. One of my best friends, I told him, hey, have you done testing for this specific genetic risk factor for heart disease? So he did that test, and he came back and he's like, my number is like 450. I was like, well, that's a problem because that number should be like under 70. And if it's 450, it means there's a pretty good chance you're going to have a heart attack at like 50 or 60. There's, biotech companies right now working on therapies where a single injection quarterly or a single injection annually can absolutely obliterate your cardiovascular risk. And if you can do something like that, you meaningfully, curve that rate of death and you get ahead on prevention for cardiovascular disease. Like, to me, that moment was why all of this matters, because he went to his doctor, he went to a cardiologist because he was trying to do well. They gave him a set of panel and blood tests and his numbers were a little bit off. So he started to go for runs. Great first step. What they didn't test was a genetic predisposition marker that we now know is so much more important. And if you have that high genetic predisposition number, your cholesterol numbers need to be like amazing, not good. They have to be incredible or you're going to have a heart attack. Like, there are so many therapies he should be starting now because he now has access to that number. That's the kind of stuff I want to give away for free. Like that level of information helps people actually like get preventative, not reactive, and put it on a care spectrum where if somebody wants to be aggressive, they can. If somebody wants to be conservative, they can. But I want to give people information, and then I want to give them choice and assortment and a doctor to help navigate that for a cost that isn't overwhelming. It's how do we get ahead of detection for things like cancer and early tumor detection. My dad, had stage 4 colon cancer when he was 39. It then cost the healthcare system, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, to have surgery and then treat him for many years with chemotherapy. The idea of an annual exam that can scan your body for early signs, early proteins through blood testing, or early actually imaging signs that can detect a millimeter-sized tumor is incredibly fascinating. Last year, we acquired Your BioHealth, which is one of the few at-home blood collection devices. I have it right here on my desk. And this device costs just a couple bucks to manufacture, and you can click it on your arm, and it's got 30 microneedles inside of it. Each of the microneedles is smaller than an eyelash. So if you feel nothing, you click a button, you feel nothing, and then a small tube of blood gets extracted from your arm in about a minute or two. You can then peel that off and you can mail it to New Jersey, which is where we have a lab processing facility, and we'll have a couple others in the next year and two, and run a full panel, 50 biomarkers, and it will cost us like almost nothing. To me, that is the vision. A preventative front door that is near cost or free. And that requires us to spend hundreds of millions of dollars, which we're doing right now, to totally verticalize this stuff and actually own the devices, the lab processing, and that fulfillment. But then a platform that says, here's everything we know, here's what we can help you with.
That was a lot, but I do believe that the personalized health portion of their business is huge. That is how they're going to really keep the customers, and that's their attachment to a customer. So, and it's not even just customer, just in general, like for health-wise as humans, I think that's very good for us to be able to prevent certain diseases and sicknesses and all that stuff, disorders, whatever it is. If we're able to prevent it, that's way better, right? Prevention rather than reaction. So I'm going to go over exactly why personalization and preventive care is huge for their business. Preventive care is generally considered 3 to 4 times more productive than reactive care per dollar spent. While it does require upfront investment in time and money, the long-term value is massive, often resulting in a 10x return on investment when considering both medical savings and productivity. Preventive care acts as a safety net that avoids the most expensive parts of the healthcare system. Every $1 spent on prevention can generate 3 to 8 in avoided treatment costs, right? So every dollar you spend on that, you're avoiding 3 to 8. That's a big savings. Treating late-stage cancer can cost up to 7 times more than treating it when detected early. Right there, that's big. Moving to a proactive model could reduce overall healthcare spending by 28%, saving roughly $2 trillion annually in the US alone. Wow. And then chronic illnesses cost the economy $4 in lost productivity for every dollar spent on direct medical care. So immediately, as you can see, preventive care is way better than reaction. The most critical value of prevention is measured in life years gained. Early detection shifts treatment from management to cure. Breast cancer has a 99% 5-year survival rate if caught early, compared to roughly 30% if it has spread. Right there. That's huge. We're talking lives. We're not, I'll get into it later, but when you're talking about the value of something, people use Amazon, we use Netflix, we have all these different subscriptions, but none of them have to do with our life. This does, which is insane. If you can prevent colon cancer, breast cancer, testicular cancer, ovarian cancer, any kind of cancer, you can prevent it so much more, people will pay for that. Early intervention often allows minor surgery or lifestyle changes rather than invasive chemotherapy, radiation, or major bypass surgeries. And then chronic management, detecting risk factors like high blood pressure or cholesterol early can prevent heart attacks and strokes entirely, like he was saying. So these are the numbers that if we're able to see now, we can start making moves now and really preventing these bad things from happening. Companies like Hims and Hers uses data fundamentally different. So I did ask, I said, hey, how is it like Meta and Google, right? In a way of like, it uses a lot of data, and how are they going to use that data to keep the customers, get new customers, right? Because it's going to be, even though it's physical, it's based on medication and prescriptions, Hims is also heavily going to be based on data, right? So I was like, okay, well, how can you compare it? So while big tech uses data to predict what you'll click, Hims uses it to predict which treatment will work best for you. So it's similar, right? Hims uses data to build a personalization engine by analyzing millions of patient interactions, and then they refine their medical offerings. They track which dosages or medication combinations result in the best outcomes for specific patient profiles. The product development, right? Customer feedback and lab data inform new product launches such as customized weight loss or hair regrowth formulas. And then also predictive care. They use AI to identify when a patient might need a follow-up or change in treatment before the patient even realizes it. So they're going to be using all this data to be able to manage their business a lot easier, right? Be able to, hey, you're going to need this before the customer even knows, right? The patient's not even going to know they might need something or they don't feel it yet, but like with the data, they say, hey, you might want to start moving towards something else. That's big. The value of having millions of health problems, you have to think about having millions of people and their health information on there. Having access to health data at scale is arguably the most valuable type of data in the modern economy, often valued at hundreds of dollars per record compared to cents for social media data. That's huge. Why it's so valuable? Real-world evidence. Large data sets allow companies to conduct clinical trials in the real world. This is highly valuable to pharmaceutical companies looking for new uses for existing drugs. You also have long-term retention. Health is not a one-off purchase, right? By managing chronic conditions, hair loss, anxiety, weight, Hims creates a subscription for life, making the data on your progress worth thousands in long-term revenue, right? I mean, you have to think about when you have these things, you have all this data, you want to be with the person who has all of your data and your records and, is going through it. It's different to have to change into someone else. And the AI training. To build the doctor of the future, you need millions of examples of symptoms and successful treatments. Companies with this data have a massive competitive moat in the race for AI healthcare. That's true. Data is everything, right? So when you have the data, right? They talk about all these SaaS companies, these software, and it's so much data that's being done and how they have to analyze it and how it's going to be productive for a company. Hims is going to have so much data from all of us and our health that it's going to be worth a lot. He also talked about their long-term goals. So I'm going to go over, or he's going to go over that, and I'll kind of break down exactly what he's talking about the long-term goals for Hims.
When you look at the patients coming to Hims and Hers today, the patients starting their healthcare journey, the majority of them do not have legacy data and systems within old EMR platforms, right? They moved to a new city, they moved to New York, and they're 22, and they're like, I don't have a doctor, yet I'm feeling a little sad. What do I do? Right? And their first time entry into the healthcare system is Hims and Hers. And so the wave of healthcare for the future, for the next 20 years, for the 50 years after that, is going to be a patient population that's starting today. And that's why I think you have to build a relationship early. You have to have an assortment of care that starts young for people so that you can give them an example of what great looks like, and then build with them over many, many years. When you think about the fact that we're treating 10, 20,000 patients a day, like the largest health systems in the world are not treating 10 to 15,000 patients per day. So there's an immense amount of knowledge that's being built around different types of patients, their demographics, their risk factors, their biomarkers, what medicines and treatments work, why, what side effects they have, how much they feel better, combination therapies that are beneficial. Like there's just an immense amount of knowledge base growing, where I think we're going to be able to start having stronger perspectives of what excellence looks like in healthcare. What do we believe the gold standard in preventative care is? If you look at the existing system in the US, almost nothing has to do with patient outcomes or patient happiness, right? So many people make money. Everybody makes money, but none of them make money in any way that's actually reflective of success of the customer or patient. And I think that's where our model is most powerful. Like, we only make money at Hims and Hers if you are happier and healthier, period. But ultimately, we only succeed if you succeed.
You hear that, right? They want to, first of all, they want to capture the new generation, right? They want to capture the young one, like you're saying, the 22-year-old moving to New York and all that stuff. You don't have a doctor, but if you have a doctor on Hims, you have a doctor anywhere you go. He's also talking about how if you get people in their early 20s, you get them young and you get them trusted and you show them what excellence in medication and self-care looks like, they will want to be with you for a very long time. You're developing a relationship with them. And having their data as well, being a part of their journey with their data and helping them navigate it is huge. So I'm going to kind of go over exactly how that works out, starting with what they do and capturing this young generation for many years to come. So it says Hims and Health is securing the trust of the younger generation. It's not just a marketing tool. It is the foundation of their entire business model. You really do have to think about this. Capturing a user in their 20s creates a decades-long relationship. Their model relies on subscriptions, right? Hair loss, birth control, anxiety meds, low churn. Once a patient finds a medical routine that works, they rarely switch providers. Why would you? Right? If you find something that works, you're not going to move on. Now, you are more willing to stay with that provider and try something different than you are to go to another provider and try something different. Because this provider that you've been with already has your information. Now, if they start messing it all up time after time after time, of course, then someone might leave. But you're more willing to change up your medication and do something different with your current provider rather than switching providers to do something different, right? Why would you do that? So expanding the needs. A 25-year-old buying acne cream today is also a 45-year-old buying weight loss or longevity treatments tomorrow, right? So this 25-year-old buying something now, this is for their young self. And when they're their old self, they might need something else. And so you are developing kind of like this lifelong customer. Destigmatizing sensitive health, right? So Hims uses sleek, Instagrammable packaging to make medicine feel like a lifestyle brand, right? They make it feel like not so like medical, like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Younger generations prioritize privacy and convenience over traditional in-person doctor visits, which is 100% true. I do not like going into the doctors. I actually did a Hims blood test at home. I'm going to be making a video about it. And it was way better. I would way rather go and draw my own blood and send it in the mail than have to go into the doctors. 100% of the time. 100% of the time. I had no pain. It was quick. It was a lot quicker than going to the doctor and coming back. Even though they had to send it, I had to wait a couple days for that's fine. Discretion, younger generation. Oh, wait, I already did that. Mental health. By winning trust in the mental health space early, Hims becomes a primary health resource for a generation that prioritizes wellness. Now, we all know this younger generation is definitely more self-care and all that stuff. And about a little bit more aware of what they're trying to put in their bodies to a degree. So, if they can be that number one already when they're young, then that's great. Digital first dominance. Gen Z expects a frictionless experience. If the app is easier than a clinic, Hims wins. Hims wins. It is. It was a lot easier than going to a clinic, for sure. Younger users rely on TikTok and Instagram for health advice. Hims thrives on this digital word of mouth. They do. They're really out there, and it's their type of world. This demographic, brand loyalty. This demographic is notoriously brand skeptical. Once trust is earned, it acts as a massive moat against competitors. So if you do not trust a company, well, a lot of the times, trust is hard to come by. The younger generations, even I would have to say millennials, we kind of very not trustworthy of a lot of things. Everyone's lying to us. And I mean, especially now with AI, right? No one trusts anything we see or hear. So once you trust something, you're like, okay, it's real. They're going to give it to me and it's not going to be fake. It's real. That's big. That is really big. He does not talk about Hims being a Netflix or an Amazon. I'm going to talk about that, and I do believe that Hims could be the next Netflix / Amazon type of business in the healthcare industry. So first off, the new Netflix of health. I compared Hims to Netflix and Amazon. So first I'm going to do Netflix. So the new Netflix of health and the new Amazon of health. I think I messed that up. Meant to put Amazon later, but oh well. Hims and Hers has already begun shifting toward the model you're describing, which I said again, the subscription. The company launched Labs by Hims and Hers, which officially moves them from a medication-first store to a data-driven health platform. If they fully committed to a model where a monthly subscription covers yearly tests, meds, and data, the business would transform from a digital pharmacy into a virtual concierge health platform. I do believe they're going to get there. He was already talking about how he wants to give out the free tests. Well, you'd be giving out those yearly tests, and you just have a subscription service. You'd be paying $1,500 a month, $1,500 a year, but you'd be getting the advanced tests, and you'd be getting a little bit of medication, right? You'd have access to some stuff. Why isn't that going to the next picture? There we go. Instead of paying for specific pills, $30 for hair loss, a user might pay a flat membership fee, $100 a month, that unlocks a holistic health suite. Proactive versus reactive. Currently, users come to Hims because they have a problem. The new model is going to capture users before they have symptoms by selling longevity and optimization. It's also a sticky data ecosystem. By owning your lab data, the blood work and the biomarkers, Hims becomes much harder to leave. Moving your health history is more difficult than switching where you buy generic Viagra. True, if you're just buying Advil or Viagra, just generic over the counter, you can go anywhere. But if you're buying something specific to your blood and your biomarkers, Hims, they're going to have all that information and data. I doubt you can't export that data, but they're going to have everything on you, and you're going to trust them in the way that everything's set up. You're going to have everything with them, right? Then the Netflix of health. Much like Netflix bundles movies, Hims would bundle verticals. Your one subscription could cover hair, skin, metabolic health, all managed through a single dashboard, right? So Netflix has all the different types of movies. Well, Hims will have all the different types of medications. You're able to pick which one you need for a flat fee, right? Now, moving to this model will likely change their core metrics significantly. So we're going to kind of see how it would be. So this is their current model, right? Driven by pill refills, higher the churn rate is higher. Users will leave after fixing a symptom. Margins, higher gross margins, right? 70 on meds. So they have high gross margins. And the average revenue per user is about $83, $84 per month. They announce on their earnings $83 per month for every user. Then if they go to the subscription, they'll be driven by health data accumulation. Sounds like what they're going to do. The churn rate is lower. Users stay to track their health. The margins will be lower initial for lab costs, but higher long-term because of all the stickiness. And then the average revenue per user will be potentially $150 with premium testing tiers, because not only would you just do like it said, oh, you have $99, well, they'll have another tier for $150, maybe $200 a month. Kind of going digital content versus physical care, right? So Netflix, marginal costs, right? 0. Serving one extra user costs nothing. It doesn't cost them anything, right? To do another customer for Hims, it's need extra shipping and processing, labs, all that stuff, right? Regulation, there's nothing really in Netflix. I mean, there is regulation, but not as much, right? There's extreme regulation for medications. Retention tool, new shows, right? Exclusive content. But Hims, personal data, your blood history and all that stuff, that's going to keep you in. I don't know why I didn't put a red line here. And then binging, right? Encouraged, right? The more Netflix you have, the better. But the more medication, that's not exactly what they want, right? So you are kind of capped. You can't just binge on Hims, but you can't necessarily binge on Netflix and get more money. If you do anything extra in Hims, you might get more, right? So that's the difference. The Netflix strategy for Hims. So to truly mimic Netflix, Hims would need to master 3 specific areas. So Netflix, they use your viewing history to suggest a new thriller, right? This is number 1, the recommended engine, right? The recommendation engine. So Netflix, they use your viewing history to suggest a new thriller or a new show. Hims is going to use your lab data and biomarkers to suggest a different dosage or new supplement, adding, some vitamin D or whatever, right? So the goal is to make the algorithm so good that the user trusts the platform to manage their health automatically. So you're going to be like, you know what, Hims, I trust you. You're going to run my tests. You're going to do this. You're going to go through your AI. You're going to do your information, all your data, and you're going to tell me what I should take, and I'm going to trust you, right? Number 2, tiered content libraries, right? So this is kind of what I was just talking about. Instead of a basic standard premium video quality, Hims would tier their care intensity. So you might even have an ad-supported or a freemium, so access to health data tracking and basic wellness articles, right? Just some simple stuff. Standard, unlimited generic meds, and plus yearly basic labs. And then you have a premium where you have weight loss injections, specialized hormone therapy, and quarterly deep dive blood work. So a standard would be something very simple. You get like, I can get all my generic medications that I get, and I get a yearly lab test, all at home. Or you go premium where you get bigger tests, more tests per year, and then you're actually having access to more medication. This all sounds so possible. And then the low friction signups, right? Netflix won by making it just one click to start. Hims is trying to do this. By your bio, painless blood collection, so you don't have to go to a scary lab. And they're using asynchronous telehealth, so you don't have to book a live video call. I literally didn't have to do anything. I went on the app, did a few, information stuff, put my information, and I had the blood test at my home in a couple days. I took the blood test. I sent it the day, you have to send it basically right when you take the blood test. And then the next day I was like, your blood tests are in. I was like, honestly, it felt faster than when I go to a doctor. When I go to a doctor, I feel like I have to wait a few days. Sometimes they call you. Sometimes, maybe you have to call them, right? It was immediate. Structural advantages of a health model. So actually, Hims might be better than Netflix in the long run. What? So the higher switching costs. It's easier to cancel Netflix and move to Disney+. It's physically and emotionally difficult to move your medical history and prescription routine to a new provider. True. Think about that. It's so, if I wanted to cancel Netflix right now, I could. If I want to cancel my medication, different. Totally different process. Pricing power. You might cancel Netflix if they raise the prices by $5. It's pretty big, right? And it's for your entertainment. you are much less likely to cancel your hair loss or weight loss or even like your, cardiovascular medication subscription because of the personal stakes are higher, right? You're not going to cancel because it went up just a few bucks because the personal stakes are higher. If you don't get this medication, you might die. If you don't watch Netflix, you might be bored. Big difference. Data compound interest. So Netflix data tells them what you like. Hims data tells them what your body needs. This allows them to cross-sell you products for the next 40 years of your life. That's true. And now this is also what I just said. You could be either bored, right? Or you could be dead. Like, you need this stuff. So Netflix is just something that you need or you like and you want, but Hims is going to be giving you something that your body actually needs. And you're probably going to need it for the next 5 to 10 years, if not maybe for life. And then in 10 years, you're going to need something else, right? The Netflix trap. Netflix struggles because it must constantly spend billions on new content to keep people from unsubscribing. Hims faces a similar risk, the cure churn. If a user fixes their skin or hair and feels done, well, they might cancel, right? If you do not have an ongoing issue, you might be like, oh, it's a fix and I'm out, right? The fix, Hims must pivot to longevity. If they sell staying young, rather than just fix a problem, right, the bald spot, then the subscription becomes a lifelong commitment. Instead of just being like, oh, I need to fix this, like, I want to keep this as this. I want to keep this being young rather than I need to fix this. That's a whole different mentality from a customer standpoint. Now, this is where I was supposed to put Amazon. And I didn't. I put it at the beginning. But this is Amazon. The logistics versus clinical comparison. So now I have Amazon, the everything store, and Hims, the health platform. So Amazon offers convenience, the 2-day shipping, where Hims offers the access, no doctor's visit. That's convenient. Infrastructure. Amazon has a massive fulfillment centers, where Hims has proprietary compounding pharmacies. Amazon has the prime hook. What really keeps you there is the free shipping and the video. But Hims also has the MedMatch AI and lab data. Amazon market entry started with books. Hims started with erectile dysfunction and hair loss. So they both started with something and they're going to continue to move on to something bigger and better. This sounds a lot alike, right? So how Hims mimics the Amazon flywheel. So Amazon flywheel is by lowering prices to get more customers, which attracts more sellers, which continues to lower prices. Hims is building a clinical flywheel. Cheap, generic meds, like Amazon's books, bring millions of men and women onto the platform. And then they have the vertical integration. By owning their own pharmacies, like Amazon owning its own delivery, Hims cuts out the middleman, CVS, Walgreens, and increasing their profit margins. And the data personalization, of course, Amazon knows what you want to buy next. So Hims is going to suggest your next treatment based on your unique biology, which again is bigger. The next book, the next movie, the next technology thing, the next shirt, I don't know, whatever you're buying, the next thing of toilet paper, like I don't know exactly what you're buying on Amazon, but the next thing is not nearly as important as Hims. The next suggestion, the next recommendation that Hims gives you is way more important than what all these other companies are suggesting, right? They're suggesting just to buy something else and to fill your house mostly. Hims as Amazon pharmacy, the rivalry. Interestingly, Hims is actually competing directly with Amazon Clinic because Amazon does have their own pharmacy way. So Amazon's strategy is basically a broad marketplace though, right? They want to sell you from everything, toothbrushes to insulin. They prioritize volume. They want as much to go out. Hims' strategy is a curated lifestyle brand. They focus on high margin recurring treatments for conditions people find embarrassing to talk about in person or just, want convenience, right? Because no one wants to be like, oh, I'm taking a drug to lose weight. You just want to be like, oh, you look good. What are you doing? I'm working out and eating better, right? Like, oh, babe, you're performing really good tonight. What? Oh, I'm, you have these things where people don't want to talk about it, and so Hims can do that for you, right? But they're more quality, right? Not quantity, not volume. They're gonna do quality of what you really need and what works for you. The AWS of health, The most profitable part of Amazon is AWS, their cloud computing, which powers other companies. The Hims equivalent, their compounding infrastructure. Because Hims can manufacture custom pill combinations, they have a moat that standard pharmacies don't. They aren't just a store, they're a manufacturer. Simple, right? So they have that advantage. Now this is where the comparison breaks, the trust gap. If Amazon sends you the wrong book, it's annoying. If Hims sends you the wrong heart medication, it could be a legal and medical catastrophe, right? Customer support. Amazon can use bots for 99% of the AI could just run Amazon's customer service basically, but Hims must have a licensed medical professionals in the loop at all times, which makes scaling much more expensive than Amazon's automated system. So that is true. You have to have these, medical professionals, all these doctors are part of it so that you can legally get these prescriptions and everything going. So summary, who wins? Amazon wins on everything else, but Hims is betting that they can win on the self. People are willing to pay a premium for a brand that understands their specific health goals better than a giant everything store. That is true. As much as I do like Amazon for a lot of the stuff I get, I don't know if I'd trust them for my health information, my health data, and to do all that. Amazon feels like my store where I get my everything else. My toilet paper, I guess I can get a toothbrush there too, right? I just buy all kinds of, I got the wires and cables for this. I got my microphone for the camera, right? I bought my computer on Amazon. That's the stuff I'm using Amazon for. I'm not using it for health. And Amazon is still not pushing that nearly as much as they do their other stuff. So, I do believe Hims is going to win on that part. So it is very interesting to see how Hims and Amazon or Hims and Netflix kind of do compare as this future is going to be coming to reality. They compare very similar.
What do you not spot?
Now I do want to bring up one thing that it was very interesting. It has nothing to do necessarily about the business, but it was a little nugget that he said, and I'm wondering if we're going to see Hims. We've already known that they do the big Super Bowl commercials. Are they going to do a World Cup commercial? I don't know if he's teasing it, but let's just listen really quick. Oh.
What do you not sponsor that you would most like to?
World Cup.
Like the event itself?
Mm-hmm.
Or like the FIFA World Cup brought to you by Hims?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, you got the US one coming, dude. It's not too late to spend some dollars.
Right.
Dude, I love that.
His reaction, you see his face right now, I don't know. It was just giving me feelings of like, oh yeah, we have an ad ready. We're not telling you. It gave me those feelings and vibes. I work at Fox Sports, and I'm gonna see if Hims has an ad. I'm gonna do some insider, research to see if I can find out. But that seemed very interesting. Would Hims really have an ad ready for World Cup? And that would kind of show, what they want to do internationally as well, right? They want to. World Cup right now is going to be in the U.S., so it's going to be a huge U.S. event. But the world watches it. And so advertising on the World Cup, same with the Super Bowl, right? Puts you out there for everybody. So thank you for watching. This was kind of a beast of a video, 45 minutes. But I do believe it was very educating for me. Please give it a like and subscribe too. I really appreciate it. It was telling. It told me a lot about what he was saying. About the future, from peptides to personalization, to how they're going to grab this new generation. It just seems like Hims is on such a good track, and their stock is low. It's low. In my opinion, it's low. So I'm gonna keep swooping up some shares. I have my challenge, so I can only swoop up so many per week. But I am going to be getting some more shares of Hims. It's under $20, and I think it's a steal right now, especially for where it seems like their vision is, and not just the vision, where their actual numbers are going. The revenue, everything is going up in the direction you want it to go. It's just the stock hasn't done that, right? So I believe the stock has a great, massive opportunity. So I'm an investor. So that's a disclaimer. I am an investor. It's not financial advice, but I do believe it is a great stock to be looking into and possibly buying. So thank you for watching this beast of a video. Again, it was very long. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you feel, if you are an investor in the HIMS, I hope you feel a little bit more confident in your investment. I hope you can sleep a little bit easier tonight. And if you're not a HIMS investor, maybe you look into it, maybe you feel more comfortable. If you were thinking about getting it, maybe you feel a little bit better about it. So yeah, like I always say, be aware and be prepared so you're not scared, especially in a market crash, right? Because if you are aware and prepared, why are you going to be scared, right? You'll have the money, you'll be ready, and you'll come out of it more money. So thank you for watching again, and never forget to earn it, save it, invest it, buy low, sell high. I want assets, not liabilities, and you can count on compounded interest.